blue belt qualification test. Most common mistake and greatest weakness is lack of conviction. What does that mean? It means you just don't go for it. You don't believe in the finished product. You don't believe in closing the deal. You might believe in the steps of the technique. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, triangle choke. But you aren't attached. You aren't 100% committed to making it happen to the fullest. And think about it. Conviction, believing that the deal will be closed. Believing that you will make it to the choke. Believing that you're supposed to get there and that you will get there. Wow. Would we rather have someone with 50% technique and 100% conviction, or 100% technique and 50% conviction? A. You got that? Someone with 50% technique and 100% conviction or belief that that technique should take place.
If they fought each other, that person's going to win.
The person who believes more will win. So it's so important that although we're teaching you all these techniques and the step-by-step is all good, we're just introducing you. Hi, nice to meet you. Like, you guys are shaking hands in our presence, and that's it. It's your job to make that technique your best friend, and it's your job, we talked about it, the rapid mastery drills, right? They fall into that same category. They help make that possible. In rapid mastery drills, you build that conviction if you do them properly. But, man, we just have to break down the idea that it's who believes more will win.
And something to this effect is that when you're rolling with somebody, they can feel whether or not you are really going for the technique or not.
Right.
Right? If I'm going for an arm lock, sometimes I go for it with so much conviction that people tap out before the arm's even extended. From the beginning of the control,
they feel it.
My knee behind the head, I control their head and their face, I fold my leg and I spin, tap, tap, they tap. Because I go for it so tight, and there's so much power behind it, and so much leverage, that they don't even believe that there's any possibility of escape, that they tap before they even feel the pressure, or a choke. My hand lands in the choke, and I'm about to go, and they tap.
So it's fair to say that when Hidon does that, what determines whether that person on the bottom, who has been me many times, what determines whether that person will escape or whether Hidon will close the deal is who believes more. If I believe more, think about this real simply. If I believe more in my escape, sincerely believe more, and behave accordingly, if I believe more in my survival and my escape, then Hidon believes in his choke. If I believe more, then Hidon believes in his choke. He puts it in, but he's like, yeah, maybe it's going to work. And I'm thinking, no matter what, I will survive right now. Guess what's going to happen? I will survive.
And what allows you to, what is a determining point that you believe you can survive or not? It's where I land my choke and where I am.
Yeah.
In 1 second.
And your conviction once you get there. And your conviction once you land. And I feel that Hidon is not coming off no matter what. It's in.
So assuming that my hand gets in really deep, amazing bite, and I'm tight and I'm close.
I know.
You accept it, you just tap.
Yeah, I can tell at that point you have the technical advantage and conviction.
You're able to, you can read my overall position and my control. You can tell if my conviction has validity, right?
Yes.
If it can even be
tell.
serious.
Yes.
If the grip is kind of weak.
Because sometimes you put a hand in there just to feel, just to see what's going on. Other times you put it in with a sincere belief that the choke is going down. No matter what anyone says or does, it's going down. It's like, and this belief is something that, it's not a technique that we teach you, right? It's just something that I think that with each technique, it can vary with each technique. You can have greater conviction with other certain techniques. Naturally, those which you're more comfortable with. But the reason we're talking about this now is because we need you to have the vision and the understanding that just learning the steps of the technique isn't enough. It can be perfect steps. But if you don't believe, it doesn't matter what technique. You name a technique and I'll tell you right now, trap and roll from the mount. Class number 1, day number 1, combatives, first technique you ever learned. Trap and roll. If you grab the arm, trap the foot, and bridge slowly, and they resist a little bit, they're not going to roll. But if you grab that arm, trap the foot, and bridge and roll like it's the last roll of your life, you're going to get out. Now, you know what the problem is?
why don't people have as much conviction as they should have?
Because they're not even sure if the technique is being done 100%.
Correct.
Sometimes they don't believe in the steps.
I think sometimes too, you don't want to commit 100% because sometimes if you go for, let's say, an arm lock from the guard 100% or a triangle, and you miss, it could possibly put you in a worse position.
Yes.
Or if you're on top of someone, to go for a submission 100% might cause you to lose the mount, might cause you to spin for an arm lock and not even have the arm.
Yes.
So it's the fear of losing what you have right there.
Yeah, that's what it is.
There has to be no fear.
Yeah, you know what it boils down to? It's so interesting. Like, basically what we're telling you is you have to go for a technique with 100% belief. And what that means, let's be very clear, a little side note here. We always talk about energy efficiency and saving energy and not wasting energy, right? It was one of the philosophies in the Gracie Combatives course. Energy efficiency is the final goal. And that makes all the sense in the world. That the final goal is to do every technique with the absolute least amount of energy possible. Let me say that again. If there's a cross choke, you want to get that cross choke with the least amount of energy possible. Now, that doesn't mean you don't use energy. My grandfather always told us, that when the time for the choke happens, you're going to put some energy into that because you got to squeeze strong, get your hold. Now, you're still using leverage, but in other words, you're tense. You're doing it. You're going for the kill. You're latched onto your prey kind of thing, you know? So at the point of submission, you're allowed to use a little energy. Why does that make sense? Because you're about to close the deal.
And you've been saving energy the whole fight.
Yeah, you've been surviving, waiting for the right moment. He puts his hand out, you spin, and you lock down with not anger. He doesn't like the word anger, but with conviction, with tightness, with that energy, and with that belief that the deal will be closed. Okay? So, closing the deal. Closing the deal. Now, the question is, why, like you said, why aren't they giving their full conviction on the technique? And the answer, yeah, it's so major.
Yeah, if you imagine you give full conviction, you go 100%, and you fail.
Right. Well, put it this way. That's why they don't do it. And we can tell you right now, if you don't give it 100%, you're going to fail no matter what. You see the problem? So the fear of going with full conviction and failing prevents you from trying it, right? Whereas trying it without full conviction, just kind of giving it a little, let me see if it's going to work. Let me see if it's going to work. Mindset, chances are it's not going to work.
Yeah, you see it's available. You know what? Okay, I'm going to do the steps.
I'm going to try to see what happens. Yeah. No. So they lose because they don't want to try with conviction because they don't want to lose. But then their failure to try with conviction means it never works. So what we're telling you is this. You have to just do it. Even if you don't think it's going to work. Even if you don't know the steps 100%. Remember we said, I'd rather you have 50% technique and 100% belief in those techniques than 100% technique, steps down perfect, and 50% belief in those techniques. Now, what's going to happen is, let's say you have a technique that is 50% accurate. Your arm lock is 50% correct, the steps. Or better yet, triangle. I like triangles. It's 50% correct. You go for it with 100% conviction.
You're going to know exactly what's missing in
your
triangle.
Yes. That's the whole moral of the story right there.
I know.
In other words, if you're willing to go 100%,
it's a study.
It's a study. Yes, as long as you accept that. Like when I learn a new knee lock, for example, when I'm sparring with Hidon, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work, the knee lock. But that doesn't mean I don't even try it. I say, okay, let's just do this. Let's just do this just to see. In other words, I'm willing to pay to find out if it might work. And when I say pay, I mean pay with my position, pay with my energy, pay with my exposing of the technique, whatever. I don't think it's going to work, but I'm willing to pay to find out.
You want me to expose my hand?
Yeah. So I go for this new knee lock on Hidon, and I go, see the thing is, even though I know my technique and my steps and my comfort with that technique is only 50%, I go with 100% conviction.
So I defend with 100% conviction.
Yes, and guess what? All the weaknesses surface.
And now head or nose.
Wow, what was missing was my hips weren't tight enough here, and my knees weren't squeezing tight enough.
And you know, my behavior for that offense.
And guess what's going to happen? Next time I go for it with equal conviction, my technique will be 70%, then 80%, then 90%.
All kinds of data was collected from that conviction.
So basically, we're telling you guys to, let's say you're playing target practice with a gun, right? And there's a target over there. The final goal is to be a sniper, where you pull up the gun, you go pop, and you come back down, target is down, game over. When Hidon goes for the arm lock from the side mount, there's no 50% technique. It's 150% technique with 150% conviction. So he's sniper, pop, game over. Boom, game over. What we're asking you to do is, if you see the target right now, go like this, machine gun. Just fire some shots in that direction. Now, these shots are legit and they will kill. And they will hit the target. If they hit the target, they will knock the target down. Just shoot a bunch of ammo. And trust that even though you're missing some shots, the ones that you hit eventually and the ones that you miss are going to tell you where you're off and how to adjust and compensate. This goes against some of the philosophy because so much of what we say is relax, save energy, wait for the right time. Don't do it if it's not right.
There you go, wait for the right time.
Correct.
To do this.
Now, but here's the thing. If they learn a knee lock, for example, their timing might not be 100% perfect. So in fear of missing and doing it the wrong time, they don't even try it. You see what I'm saying? So you got to just do it, you guys. You have to just go for it sometimes. And be willing to mess up on the way out. Guess what? The time to mess up is right now with Hidon. You know what I'm saying? So that on the outside, you are 100% conviction and 100% technique accuracy. So the moral of the story is you have to be willing to mess up in the gym. And when you do mess up with 100% conviction so that you find out, you give the technique a chance. If you don't believe in the technique, it never even had a chance to work. If you think to yourself, I'm going to go ahead and give this triangle a shot. I'm going to try the triangle. And I'm going to hold this wrist and see what happens as we go. Let's just see what happens. That's not giving the technique a chance. That is showing what you're going to do. That is going through the steps. And that is technique lost without ever knowing what would have happened if you were serious about your career with that triangle choke. So, conviction. Now, people don't want to do it because they don't want to waste energy. But the thing is, basically what we're saying is, waste energy to learn. In other words, waste ammo so that you know where not to shoot, and then you learn where to shoot. The problem is when people waste ammo, we have guys come in and just go aggro without any understanding or desire to eventually narrow down to a sniper status. They're staying in machine gun mode their whole career. So we're saying, give a little machine gun, and eventually you'll learn where the target is not positioned, and that'll in turn tell you where to shoot. But you got to shoot. You got to pull the trigger. You can't just aim and say, well, I wonder if I'm going to hit him or not. Just kind of put it out there and let it happen. Now, safety. You got to touch on safety.
That's what I was going to say. Safety is, I go for an arm lock with 100% conviction,
right,
but I don't hurt people's arms.
Everything is 100% and tight and controlled, except for the actual part.
Even the actual part is 100%, but I understand very well where to stop on the arm lock to where it won't hurt.
Yeah. And that's another reason why we weren't having this conversation in combatives, right? Because we wanted you, before we told you basically to go crazy and to go machine gun on your partner, before we told you guys to do this and really explore and believe in your techniques, we wanted you guys to appreciate how the arm lock could be broken, how the neck could be choked. And now that you guys have gotten arm locked several hundred times probably by your partners, there is a respect for the danger that exists, there. Kimuras, arm locks, because you can't go all crazy and not expect people to get hurt.
Yeah, we should be tapping faster, and we should be catching submissions faster.
Anytime someone gets injured in a submission, this is kind of a little side note, but it's worth mentioning now. Anytime someone gets injured, if my arm gets injured, two people are at fault, generally speaking. Hidon is at fault for squeezing a little too fast, and I'm at fault for tapping a little too late. It's very simple. Now, sometimes, I admit, guys will spin and squeeze so quickly, there wasn't even a chance to tap.
Especially when the level is a lot different, right? Someone more experienced is the one catching. It's tricky.
Yes.
Well, then it's more the advanced person's fault.
Correct.
If it's you and me rolling,
hey, 10-4.
It's equal. But if it's me and a blue belt, it's 90% my fault.
If it's me and my little brother, Horan, who's 10 years old, and he gets hurt, guess whose fault it is? My fault. Good point. Fair point. Okay? So conviction. Anything else you need to understand? Like, any examples of conviction that make it or break it, where you believe in? Oh, I'll tell you right now, the biggest example in the history of my life, I'm his little brother. I'm Henner Gracie. It's Hidon Gracie right there.
You're Henner?
I'm his little brother, and I have been for
Ever?
26 years, and I will be for the rest of my life. Now, for the first 17 years, the fact that I was his little brother, naturally in my brain, techniques were not supposed to work against him, and I was supposed to lose. I was programmed to think this, because naturally, little brother, that's just how it goes. So even when it got to the point where I was 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, where we slowly kind of started to, maybe the technique started to level off a little bit, and maybe the strength a little bit, where we started getting a little bit more equal, I would still lose oftentimes because he believed he was supposed to win more than I believed I was supposed to win. So I lost just, in many cases, because of lack of conviction. He would get to a side mount, kind of set up the arm lock, and in my mind I think, man, his arm lock is tighter than my defense. I convinced myself of that, and I lost. Okay, so the biggest turning point here was when I finally realized that even though he's older, I'm learning too, I'm growing as well, and I've started to believe that there's no reason why he should just beat me, just because he's older, just because he's my older brother. That alone isn't reason enough. Now, he might catch me by surprise and defeat me technically, but at the critical moment, I used to think to myself, there's no way I'm going to get out of this. Now I tell myself, I have no choice. I got to get out of this. I've got to figure out a way out. Just because he's older doesn't mean he should beat me. So, in other words, my mindset changed, and immediately my results changed. I was losing less. I was losing, much less often, and my glimpses of hopes and victory opportunities became a little more prevalent. So, anyways, it's just all about what you believe. I have students, a lot of students who, they spar with someone who is maybe a stripe or two higher than them, and that mentally messes them up. They'll be on the bottom of the mount, and they won't even try to escape the mount. They won't even try to make a move because they believe that that technique's not going to work because that person is a little more advanced than them. So, man, if they just said, no, it doesn't matter who's on top. I'm going to try right now, willing to fail, but I'm going to try with 100% conviction and give it a fair chance of success. Give the moves a chance, you guys. Conviction is what gives life to any steps of a technique. Without conviction, they're like technique steps that are just dead on the floor. With conviction, they're techniques that can save your life and defeat giants of virtually any size. Okay? It is the critical, it's the key. Without it, there's no hope. And with it, anything is possible with these techniques. Clear? Conviction. You guys got it. Here we go.